Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. So good to be with you guys. It's a hot topic today we're going to be talking about, which just concluded in Washington in about a day or two, about the US ASEAN summit. So we're going to be, there's a lot to say about that. So, and I would like to share that information with you. So before I jump into that, let me first say if this is your first time to our channel, please make sure you subscribe. And also, I want to give a shout out to AC Wong. Last time, I did not get a chance to say thank you for your super sticker. So, my apologies for that. So, I want to just to acknowledge you here live for your super sticker. So, thank you for that. So here's the thing, guys, and there is a lot to cover. So I'm gonna get into it right away, like we always do. So the only two things I want you to keep in mind as we discuss this. One of them is the upcoming summit of the Americas. It's going to be in June in LA, California. I think June 6th through the 9th or something like that. Now, that's very important. The second one has to do with the President Biden's upcoming trip to South Korea and Japan at the end of the month, and of course, and at the end of the month, yes, this month. So, and I'm gonna keep an eye open on that as to really what is the purpose of the trip. So that would be the two things I want you to keep in mind. Now, the key point I am going to cover in this talk, and I'm going to provide a brief analysis here. There are three key points, because I want you to keep this ASEAN, US ASEAN summit within the greater context of three things: China, economy, and security. So, and I'm going to detail each one of them, provide my brief analysis, we'll do a conclusion, and I'll ask you a question of the day. So, as you know, the summit that was concluded recently in Washington, D.C., it's being seen by the U.S., and this is the U.S. perspective, as to sort of the United States wants to reset, shall we say, its relationship with ASEAN and its member states. So that is the reason why the United States initiated the call and had everybody, members of the ASEAN, came over to Washington to meet with the president and the vice president, State Department, and so forth. So, but here's the thing. There are some talks within the bloc, within ASEAN, that, okay, what's this summit is all about? Now, what is the U.S. is trying to do? We all know the purpose of that because the ongoing tensions between the U.S. and China regarding trade, but also the issues on a maritime and so forth. You're all aware of all this stuff. So, but here's the thing. From ASEAN perspective, they are looking at it in a way sort of to avoid the hard questions about China and the region. And for a simple reason. Why? Because ASEAN wants to remain neutral. That's the whole idea of it. And there is legitimate reasons to that, economic and geopolitical. And we're going to get into that one. So, there's also another reason for that is that most of the ASEAN countries, they do have some sort of a good economic relationship with China, especially when it comes down to trade. And I'm going to provide some stats about where the trade is as of this year. So, but first, let's briefly, and I'm not going to get into the history aspects of it. Let's just provide a brief description about what is ASEAN and when it was established. Well, ASEAN stands for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. It was created in about August 1967, if I'm not mistaken, when the foreign ministers of the five founding members, that's why they call them the founding members. It's Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. Then about from 1984 forward to about 1999. So in 1984, you got Brunei that joined the bloc, or the ASEAN. You got Vietnam in 1995. Laos joined the ASEAN in 1997. Myanmar in 1997 as well. And the last member was Cambodia, that was joined in 1999. So that was basically, in a nutshell. So I know the long history if we are to get into the charter of ASEAN, and I'm not going to do that because that's not what I'm here about. I'm here to talk about the three main key issues: China, security, and the economics, because it is a big deal. And of course, you put this within the context of the geopolitical landscape, and that'll make perfect sense from that perspective. So let's start with China first. So, well, if you are to think as a geopolitical analyst, you're going to have to think in terms of coming up with or providing an assessment of sort. How is the United States is doing, and how is China is doing when it comes down to competition in Asia? Yeah, they are competing, and there is no secret. So we all know that. So, and here is the thing: because both superpowers, or both powers, whatever you want to call, both powers are trying to move the region, especially including ASEAN, to one direction or another. But here is the thing: both leaders, President Xi and President Biden, while they are trying to do this, they are going about it probably the wrong way without some flawed strategies. And they're going to have to think in terms of, each one of them is thinking about it from the aspect that would assist it to do that, or to achieve that objective. So here's the thing: the United States economic clout in the region is declining. And once again, it's no secret, as China's market continues to grow, economically speaking. And this is why I had to include the economy, because we're going to talk about it. It's a crucial element. So, however, despite these changes into the landscape, economic one that is, China has been unable to push back effectively, shall we say, against the United States global network of alliances, including the one in Asia. It's very, very important to understand this particular point. In addition to the economic aspects, there is the security, the guarantor, shall we say. Look at no further than Japan and South Korea. You got now the Philippines with the new president. I am curious to see when he is inaugurated in June 30th of this year, what kind of policy he is going to pursue. Now, here's the thing. Both China and the United States, they are trying now to figure out how they're going to manage the global security approach to that one. In the case of China, I recall President Xi floated this idea back in about a meeting that took place at the Bao Forum for Asia last month. But even with that, it was ill-defined, in my opinion. And this is where that flaws from part of China, but also there is a flaw on part of the United States, and I'll get to that. So, and by the way, the Bao Forum, it takes its name from the town of Bao. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's Bao, Bao, located in China's southern Hainan province, which has been, by the way, and I've been following this since 2002. It has been the permanent venue that is for China's annual conferences. That's been for a while there. So and I think China is going to maintain that one. So here is the other aspects that you guys need to keep in mind, because this summit, while some might question, what is the reason for it and all that stuff? It has some geopolitical and economic and financial impact going forward. And that's why I always say, I'm not beating the dead horse here, but You guys need to truly understand. It's not enough just to hear it. You need to understand this, that you put stuff within the context of a much bigger picture. And like I always say, the trends, you look at what's going on and you put the puzzle together. And this summit that just concluded in Washington, it's a clear indication of that big trend. So here's the other thing that you guys need to know. There is a guy in the United States by the name of Kurt Gamble. Well, Kurt Campbell is the Asia coordinator for the United States National Security Council. And this one, again, we're going to put this within the framework of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, known as IPEF. So what is important about this particular individual is that he recently claimed that building, and I quote here, by the way, building a deeper ASEAN ties will be a major for U.S. Will be a major priority for the United States in 2022. Well, isn't this kind of too late to the game? It's very late in the game because China has already moved forward. ASEAN already adopted neutral position. Philippines is rethinking the status of the agreement with the U.S. forces. Southeast Asia is going through major changes economically. India is considered moving forward with Russia's trade. All those dynamics plays a role. So, and the reason for all this, why, in my opinion, is it's late to the game, is because the region, Asia, that is, it's not the whole Asia, but mainly the Indo-Pacific part, is very, very, very critical battleground that defines the China-US competition. But I do, as an analyst, I will say this particular Indo-Pacific economic framework, the Omen are not promising, so there's nothing that's going to come out of it. And by the way, I need to clarify one particular thing here. And again, terminology does play a role. It depends, again, where you are stating the audience, that is, from a geopolitical perspective, and the economic and the financial. Excuse me. And the point that I want to make here, it has to do with, if you notice, in the United States, we kind of use the term the Indo-Pacific. There are others who use the Asia-Pacific. So let me just provide a difference between the two. And of course, who are we to judge? Use whatever. But it just, as long as we understand and put the terms within the right context. So the term Asia-Pacific is associated with the part of Asia that lies in the Pacific Ocean. Okay? The Indo-Pacific is an integrated region that combines the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and the landmass that surrounds them. So, and this is why it's important just to at least understand these differences that exist. So the question that becomes, at least for us to ask within the context of ASEAN, is what was the objective of the summit? Like I put in the title, was it of a substance or just a photo op? A photo op, that is, rather. I even read in some other contents that it was just like they use the term joke, and I can see why. Especially with the donating or assisting ASEAN with $150 million. Really? When ASEAN's economy is about $3 trillion? Yeah, that's kind of an insult, shall we say. But here's the thing to keep in mind as the summit concluded, but also what has been discussed within the summit itself, but not in great detail. Well, of course, you know, because I'm sure you experienced in the global price spike You notice that energy prices are up, wheat and oil. You got countries like, for example, now Egypt. The reason I'm thinking of Egypt, because Egypt is the top consumer of wheat in the world. And Egypt, as today, only have about a supply for the next 3 months. Because where do they get the wheat from? Both Russia and Ukraine. So they are in for some major problems. So there is also the issue between US and ASEAN. It has to do with the lack of money. The US has not invested in ASEAN, so all of a sudden pivoting towards it, and that's why ASEANs were like wondering, where have you been? Because that element of trust is not there. There's also the issue of trade deals. As I said earlier, and I'm going to talk more detail in the economics segment about that one. Then you got the idea of understanding of the future of where ASEAN is moving forward economically with a $3 trillion economy. So all this, you put that in context, okay, of what the, shall we say, the hawks in Washington, D.C. are doing. Like, for example, creating alliances military like AUKUS and Quad. What do you think ASEAN is going to be thinking? And that is the key important factor, just to understand. And the reason, guys, I had to wait. I didn't know. I was planning on doing this the day of the summit. Then I said, no, let's wait. Let's wait, because I wanted to read first the joint statement or joint communique between ASEAN and the United States. And I read it in its entirety. And I'm going to share with you towards the end some of key points that I found very, very interesting. All right, let's talk about the economic aspects of this big picture. Well, here is the thing. Why? And you put the $150 million in this context. Why it was like an insult or a joke or whatever you want to call it. If I were advising the president, I said, Mr. President, no, you don't give them 150, because that's, that a $3 trillion economy, and you're giving them peanut. That's just not going to bode well, especially in that part of the culture, understanding how it is. Because basically what it was is like crumbs. When the United States in this case, turning around and giving over $40 billion in Ukraine, that just anybody with a brain is going to be thinking, that just doesn't make sense. And how do you think ASEAN countries is going to interpret that? But unfortunately, nobody was advising the president the right way, shall we say, in doing the right thing. Because that's not how you win. That's not how you win ASEAN. If you in the White House, whatever, intended on doing that. So let's talk about economic and trade. And by the way, guys, whatever I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be providing you the links of where this information, because they are not from the United States. I have my own sources, and I'll be happy to share it with you. So, because we intend to do an in-depth analysis for our members about this topic, because we do have a few members from that part of the world, and they need to know exactly what's going on. So here's the thing. As of 2022, China, one of the top 3 exporter markets of ASEAN countries. So let's just sink in for a moment. One of the top 3 export markets of ASEAN countries. So which means what? Those countries, ASEAN and the China, they decided to eliminate about 70% of its tariffs on products imported from ASEAN. You all know the trade war between the United States and China when it comes down to tariffs. ASEAN countries, so China will eliminate about 70% of its tariffs on products imported from ASEAN. In return, this is what I always say, win-win situation. In return, ASEAN developing countries such as Brunei, for example, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam have ratified the agreement, will eliminate about 75% of their tariffs on imported products from China. So you can just see both entities are winning. China is winning, ASEAN countries are winning. Excuse me. And this is where the dilemma in the United States, that we couldn't understand that one. And I will not say we couldn't understand it. I won't shift the blame quick on that. I will blame the advisors that they knew what works, but choose not to for ideological reasons, whatever that might be. Putting the welfare of the country, our country here, when it comes down to trade with China, at the back burner. And this is why, many, and I have been talking to people the last couple of days about this ASEAN summit, US-ASEAN US summits in Washington, and everybody agreed, because what is the significance of it? What do we think? ASEAN is going to drop the ball on China and move with the US? They're not going to do that. Their economies are intertwined, let alone culturally speaking, historically speaking. They have more in common. They have more in common than they have in differences. And that's something we couldn't understand right here. So I blame the advisors. Just to add, and as I said earlier, guys, I will provide you a link where this information is. So the stats, that is. So ASEAN remains, as of today, China's #1 trade partner. And this was from the stats from January to April, which is last month. So it's as recent as it can be. And that status is accounted for about 14.6% of total trade. That's a big deal. Because here's the thing. ASEAN and China's trade total about 1.84 trillion yuan, which translates to convert rather to about give or take $275 billion. Once again, from January to April, last month. It's not a laughing matter. I'm like, not frustrated, but it's like, can't you see? It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. The numbers speak for themselves. So I don't know those who are advising the president. They're not telling him what the facts are. So that's why we end up embarking on a ill-conceived policies, fragmented policies, both foreign and economic, that end up taking us in the wrong direction. So this $275 billion, it's up about 7.2% year on year, which means from last year, it went up by 7.2%. Let me say thank you to OKZZville. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Sorry, guys, if I missed somebody, because I have to check on the numbers, the accuracy of the numbers. Sometimes I'll step outside the screen just to make sure I am presenting you with the accurate numbers. So thank you so much for your super sticker. We truly, truly appreciate it. So here's the thing. Now you take this economic, excuse me, you take this economic stats into consideration. On one hand, then you take the regional comprehensive economic partnership known as RCEP. On the other hand, it's because ASEAN and China and some other Asian countries, they're not working only on one aspect. There are a variety of things. And this RCEP came into effect, by the way, January 1st this year, 2022. So here's the thing. The stats from the first quarter indicates and demonstrates and shows that China trade with member countries expanded by about 6.9, almost 7% year to year. The equivalency in a financial aspect to about 2.8 trillion yuan, approximately about $450 billion. So, because here's the thing. And of course, like I always say, and I don't shy away from saying this, China's not doing this for the goodness of its heart. No, it's a strategic, it's economic interest, like any other country needs to do, like our country needs to do, instead of wasting our dollars in a far land that have nothing to do with the welfare of Americans here. When you are witnessing, if you happen to be an American, the oil prices now, the gas of gallon crossed $4.63. The inflation, the poverty, the homelessness. Call spade a spade. So, China doing this? That's because of, as I said, it's because the strategic and economic interest. And there is nothing wrong with doing that. As a matter of fact, for us in the United States, with all the amount of money that has been wasted, I wish, but that's a wish, as to the extent of where it's going to go, that we can reinvest that money right here at home, because we need it. The bridges, the infrastructure, who knows when was the last time it was taken care of or updated or renovated, whatever term. Anyway, let me get back to my point here. So the RCEP, in my opinion, based on the stats, and I read enough on the financial reports, on the economic reports and trends moving forward after the trade tariffs between China and the United States, where things are headed. That's how I'm thinking in terms of where I see things going. So the RCEP, basically what it's going to do is going to pave the way for China to further leverage its trade potential. And the whole reason for that? To do what? You guys got it. Is to secure greater market access in the region. And why is that, you may ask? It's because Asia, it's going to be the global hub, economically speaking, moving forward. That is the reason why. So, and by the way, just for some of our viewers who might not be familiar with the RCEP, let me just provide a few details just to put it in perspective. RCEP, as I said, it covers about 1/3 of the world population and a GDP that represents the largest free trade agreement to date. So the trade pact that's signed by the 15 Asian Pacific countries, that includes China, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, Australia, and 10 other ASEAN members of 10 other members of the ASEAN bloc. That one has entered into effect at the start of this year, as I said earlier, January 1st, 2022. So as of today, the agreement is effective for 12 of the 15 signatories, except for Indonesia, Myanmar, the Philippines, and the Philippines rather. So because they have to ratify the treaty, and they have not done that one yet. So the other question that looms large with this RCEP is the position of Australia. So given what just happened between Australia and China, with China cut off the trade for, so we all know where the economy of Australia, despite what the government in Canberra is reporting to the Aussies, I hope they can wake up. It's no different than what we have here in America. So I hope Americans will wake up. So there is another piece of information that you need to know and put into context pertaining to this. As I said earlier, guys, I took a look at certain financial reports, economic reports, just to see the trend. That's how I do my analysis. I've been doing it that way for years and years. You don't look at only one aspect, political, that is. No. It goes beyond that. So, and here's the thing. And that one is pertaining to the World Bank. Usually World Bank issues certain reports. I take an interest in that. We know usually how World Bank operates and how IMF operates, but that's not the point. And I'm not looking for that. What I'm looking for is I need to read the content of their report, then I'll verify the information myself. Well, the report that came up about the beginning of the year or so, like 3 weeks after January, 2 weeks after January or so, it was in February if I recall, reported that about, given where things are headed and going, will be about 70 low and middle income countries will be facing a problem, financial problem, that is. And you know what it is the financial repayment that will be worth about $11 billion. And those countries, remember, low and middle income, which means to them, even $2, $3, or $4 billion, it's a lot of money. Because here's the thing, according to the World Bank, because this debt really could crash their economies this year, maybe the third quarter, And the thing is, once again, using just you look at the trend, you all know familiar with what's going on right now in Sri Lanka. What happened in Sri Lanka? Debt to GDP. Basically, Sri Lanka has collapsed, economically speaking. So basically what the report of the World Bank is saying is that there are more countries on that trend coming, which is very, very concerning. And I decided yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was just looking at reading some stuff, and I decided I'm going to tackle this issue. I'm not going to do all the countries because they are about over 70 countries, whatever, but I'm going to pick 1 or 2 countries from each continent and provide an explanation as to where things are headed. So you look at what those countries all have in common, given the current global economy. Once again, you tie it to other trends. There are 3 main things we are dealing with right now, which you all know. We're dealing with prices of energy, we're dealing with high prices of food, and we're dealing also with the finances. Meaning what? Meaning that countries are printing too much money. We have it right here in the United States. That's why the question is, but wait a minute, what are we printing money for and sending it to Ukraine? $40 billion? What for? And why? And printing that money will have to be repaid back one way or another. Because the problem with all this, those 3 issues, that's what paved the way for the trouble, economic and social unrest that led to where Sri Lanka is today. I usually am I'm an optimistic guy, but I can't sugarcoat it. And the truth is, some of those countries, they're going to be facing that outcome that Sri Lanka did. It's a reality. So this is why you see in countries like, for example, Argentina, went ahead and extended another loan, accepted the conditions from the IMF. $44 billion. So here's the bottom line to all this. You got about 25, I think 20, based on the report. Excuse me. So you got about 20 countries, according to the report, in Africa. You got about 20 to 25 in Asia. And you got about 10 countries in Latin America. They're all going to be facing some major economic hardships, and they're going to need to have a plan in place. So in the case of, just to go back to China and ASEAN, as to why is that important within the context of US-ASEAN summit, you look at ASEAN and you look at China. Both of them approved a comprehensive strategic partnership known as in 2021, by the way, and that's when it happens. And as it stands now, it is ready to strengthen the coordination and collaboration with ASEAN. China's willing to do that. The reason for it is because both of them, not just China, but ASEAN as well, because they want to update the action plan and deepen the cooperation between the two entities. Interesting enough, that I kind of the report detailed that the focus is going to be on some key aspects. One of them is digital connectivity. You can just see where this is going from a financial perspective. You got the green economy, you get public health, you get industrial and supply chains, which we all know the supply chain problems that exist right now. Now, there is one major element, and the major element has to do with South China Sea, because you cannot ignore that aspect, because it's a very, very crucial. When you look at the map of the ASEAN countries, it's too important to certain ones as a member of the ASEAN, not all of them. There are about 4 countries way up north, I guess. They don't have to worry about that. So you cannot ignore that one, because it just doesn't make any sense if we do. We want to present the big picture. So at least for you, like I always say, it is not enough just to hear the information. It's whether you understand it or not. So, and like I said last time, and I'm sure you guys remember when I mentioned about China and India, if they can work out their differences regarding the border, just that the concept of the BRICS, how strong it will become. But as long as those tensions persist, nothing's going to move forward. It's no different than what it is now between ASEAN, some ASEAN members, and China when it comes down to South China Sea. And the smart move, in my opinion, is if they can sit down and resolve as far as the coming up with some code of or some protocol regarding the navigation, whatever, to solve the issue peacefully once for all. Because if you do, there will be no incentive and no reasons for the West to mingle out or get involved in something like that. Well, according to international navigation stuff, whatever. You got my point. And this is what I see. That kind of approach will sort of maintain, because it will help maintain some positive momentum, shall we say. And it will force both parties, China and those ASEAN members, to kind of reach an agreement of sort. Because here's the thing, and I have to confirm this one, and I will check on it and find out. Oh, let me say thank you to TNT. TNT, I want to say thank you. You put down, hey, David, the U.S. has no plan to reduce their deficit or pay their debtor. They no longer talk about deficits. Their long-term goal is to have a fresh start by starting World War III. Their target is China. Russia is a sideshow. Wow. That's very deep. And I can see the logic of that statement. So much appreciate your support, TNT. It means a lot. So, and that is one of the reasons why we do what we do here. It's because we want to provide you a clear understanding. This is, once again, it's not about just saying the information or sharing the information. You guys can find this whatever elsewhere or some other channel, whatever. But that's not what we do. What we do is I truly want you to understand this information and tie it to your daily life, because it impacts your pocket. It impacts your business. It impacts your finances, your health, your social interactions. That's to me what we do with this geopolitics in conflict. It's not about just political stuff. It's understanding those dynamics. So and here's the thing. So in this case of, just to continue my talk about China and ASEAN when it comes down to South China Sea, because if they are to reach an agreement and resolve this issue in a peaceful way, this will be a common ground for all of them. What do I mean by that? You look at it like, hey, we all can benefit from this. And I don't want to get ahead of it because I'm saving this for the conclusion. So that is why I wanted to keep that for. All right, let me provide a brief analysis. Yeah, I wasn't dealing with the analysis yet. I was dealing with the breaking that down to certain segments and just for you to understand. Let me say thank you to Dan Ken. Thank you so much for your super sticker. We appreciate it. Your support, guys, means a lot. So I remember it when I lost my voice, and your kind words and support. It means a lot to us. So we want to grow this channel because we want to do more things to bring information and help you understand it better. And the objective, as always, beside the truth, is to create a community where we all strive and push for peaceful coexistence among all of us. The earth doesn't belong to the United States or China or Russia or South Africa or India, whatever. The earth belongs to all of us. Yeah. And that means we all take the responsibility in ensuring that peaceful coexistence rather is maintained. Some say, well, on our level, we are not policymakers or policy decision maker or whatever. Yeah, I understand that. It's a reality. But I also understand that great ideas starts from us, the people. Doesn't matter where you're from. A great idea is a great idea. That's the whole point of it. And we wanted to have, it's with this, what we do is creating the community. So that is the whole point of all this. I'm just going through to make sure I did not miss anybody who provided us super sticker to say thank you, because to me, that's the right thing to do. You acknowledge people who support you. You acknowledge people who are there for you no matter what. So, and your support, guys, means a lot. I want you to know that, and we don't take it for granted. So, all right, let me talk about the analysis briefly here. So, here's the thing. Just put the US-ASEAN summit within the context of geopolitics. Within that, you put both the economic, security, and financial aspects. So here's the thing. It is inevitable that the geopolitical landscape and geostrategic aspects of it, okay? There are those hawks in Washington, D.C. that now are kind of disappointed. What are they disappointed at? They couldn't persuade and convince and woo the ASEAN countries to take side with the United States. I don't see that happening. Knowing what I know, I don't see ASEAN doing that. Now, the one country that I am putting a big question mark on is Singapore. And that's for financial reasons. But so far, They all stood firm, especially during the conflict in Ukraine. So, and this is why the hawks in Washington are disappointed. And this is why, again, leads me to ask the question, was the $150 million, you want to call it donation, you want to call it assistance, you want to call it development, or you want to call it a bribe or a carrot? So it just didn't make any sense. That's how I see it. Because if you want to reach out that way, especially when the world is watching how much money we've been sending over to the other side, that just doesn't make any sense. So, and this is why I believe the United States was very adamant about holding this summit. Not only, as I said at the beginning, to show the world that the US is leading and so forth, but the objective, we all know what the objective is to counter China, or convince ASEAN to take a stand or move with the United States, which I don't see that happening. Because also the United States wants to demonstrate its role in the global affairs, which I'm sad to say, and I'm going to say it, there is no role. Because of our actions, we have lost credibility. I've been saying this for years. There's nothing new. Like I always say, foreign policy starts at home. You can't be telling people what to do when you couldn't do it yourself. That's what a leader does. You can, tell your subordinates, for some of us who've been in the military and we've been put in a position of, command, whatever, you can't tell your soldier, hey, you need to do this when you couldn't do it yourself. It's like you and your friend. You got a friend who visited your house and he only criticized you because your house wasn't tidy up, whatever. Well, he couldn't do that in his own. Who gives him the right and the authority to say to you, oh, you need to get your house in order when you couldn't get his? And this is why, again, I fall back to the point of whoever was advising the president. Are they that clueless? Can they understand what global affairs are all about? Or are they just amateurs being promoted to certain positions? Because that's how majority are in Washington. Gone that era where you have people with some knowledge. Yeah, you don't see that anymore. It's unfortunate. So the US wants to show that it has what we call a commitment to ASEAN, and that the Asia Pacific or Indo-Pacific region, whatever you want to call it, is a U.S. national security priority. I don't see that personally, because if a military conflict erupts in that region, those countries won't want to be part of it. I'll tell you this straightforward. They are not going to be part of it. Of course, you take Australia and Japan and South Korea, those are, spineless anyway. Of course, the arguments in the West is that has to do, again, with the issue of the South China Sea, and because China is projecting military power. Well, that's normally comes after economic expansion. We did the same after World War II. Military expansion comes after economics. That's just the norm. You look at throughout history. Because that is, to me, what was the whole idea of the summit. Did it achieve its objectives? Personally, I say no. Because to me personally, it is self-evident. What ASEAN have demonstrated is that there are indeed tensions between the United States and China. And those tensions will have major implications. economically and geopolitically on ASEAN countries. First, because this is why I say if a military conflict erupts, which I don't foresee as of now, those ASEAN countries are going to have to think twice. And I do see them being very, very cautious into how they're going to proceed. This is why I'm curious about the new president of Philippines, what he's going to do come June 30th. So, because here's the thing, and there's some truth and reality we need to understand about ASEAN. ASEAN wanted to engage with all parties, all key players. What I mean by that, the US, Japan, China, Australia, India, even as far as the European Union for that matter. Will it work? I don't know. Can Australia meet the economic demands or needs of ASEAN country? I don't think so. Can India? I don't think so. The only country that can is China. That's the fact. That's the reality. So. I do remember the former Indonesian foreign minister, and his name was Mari. Mari Natalegawa. I hope I pronounce it correctly. He talked way back, I remember, about something called dynamic equilibrium. It was a very interesting concept. And this is why ASEAN countries didn't want to be forced to choose between one country or another. And I don't see them doing that. So. All right, let me provide you my conclusion here and question of the day. And I am going to... All right, here's the thing. Excuse me. As I said earlier, I had a chance to read, which I will provide you guys a link to the joint statement so you can read it for yourself. I had to read the joint statement in its entirety. Two things that kind of caught my attention right away, and I'm going to just provide the headline for it. One of them, it says promoting maritime cooperation. And second thing has to do with enhancing people-to-people connectivity. This one has to do with STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Well, how can the United States do that when we have issues here regarding that domain? We're falling behind in AI. We did a video on it that way. And as far as enhancing people-to-people, we don't even understand Asian culture, let alone its history. Some analysts in Washington read a book and call themselves experts. So, and the idea of promoting maritime cooperation, what does it mean? This is what I call consumption of ink. This is just to fill up the papers. They might not have a meaning at all. Empty words. Promote cooperation. What cooperation are we talking about? When we conduct our foreign policy in a double standard manner. So here's the thing I want to leave you with. As a regional economic community, you look at ASEAN as a whole, it has been the most dynamic economic powerhouse. And it's going to be that way for the rest of the 21st century. You don't just overlook a $3 trillion economy. You just don't. And what makes it even more important, and this is why it goes back to my point earlier about China and ASEAN, work out these differences and everybody will benefit. Why is that? It's because that area is hugely rich natural resources. There are also technological innovations that's taking place. It's very, very, very important. And ASEAN, by taking this neutral stand, its objective beside politics or geopolitics, its objective is to preserve the Southeast Asian region away from any nuclear weapon free zone, because that's part of their charter. And I can see why. That's why they can't side with any. Unlike, for example, what Poland now did. Poland now is allowing the deployment of a nuclear weapon on its soil. How dumb that is of the Polish government. It's like, go figure. And I don't quite understand. So this is where I see, excuse me, this is where I see the importance of, how ASEAN is going to have to really keep on a path of pragmatism. $150 million or even $1 billion. No, because if they do, that means that means they sold their soul for money. And anytime you do that, your credibility is gone. Can't be trusted anymore. And that's part of where our problem is. Here's the question of the day, guys, and I'm gonna take off here. Two things, just outside the box to think. Philippines is a member of ASEAN. How will the new president, Marcos Jr., proceed, do you think? Think of it from the context of ASEAN membership, okay? But also as a very strategic location. So Philippines as a member of ASEAN. How do you think the new elected president, Marcos Jr., will proceed? And second question is, will ASEAN economy surpass that of the European Union? I repeat, Philippines is a member of ASEAN. How do you think the new elected president, Marcos Jr., will proceed? Second question is, will ASEAN economy surpass that of the European Union? I look forward to seeing you guys next time. As always, stay informed, and many thanks for your kind support. See you guys. Bye-bye.